And the recording started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second meeting of the Data Literacy Consortium user group. If you are focusing on data literacy in any way, you are on a journey and you are very welcome here. This is an effort for us to join pathways in learning about and understanding data literacy. The topic of today's meeting is building a data culture. Way this is going to work, first we're going to do some quick updates. And we'd love for you to give some as well. So noting the number of people that are on the call, and we are actually already at 36 participants. Woohoo! And we've had over 90 people RSVP for this. So the way to keep this sane in terms of getting everybody's updates, we have the Google Doc, which you should both see in your chat room. It was also in the email that I sent you earlier. You will note in the Google Doc, there is a section called roll call. So we would love is if you could add your name there and also answer the questions. Why did you join the meeting today? And what are your current data literacy priorities and latest activities? You will note now that it is scrolling down to probably, we've got some really great updates going. So really thankful for folks. It is now down to page 4. So if you can scroll on down and put in your name and your current data priorities and why you came today, we would greatly appreciate that. We do want to make sure that we can capture as much as we can from everyone coming. And also just want to say thank you so much for doing that. So after we do these updates from our partners, we're going to hear from Catherine D'Ignazio about research she did with Raul Bargava for their data culture project. And then we get the team from Mercy Corps here on hand to tell us about their practical experiences in spreading data use in their institution. Heather is then going to give us a brief overview of the Building a Data Culture module in the Data Playbook. And after that, we're going to have some small breakout rooms where you're going to get to discuss your own efforts in building a data culture. And then we're going to talk about next steps, and we will wrap this all up. So to start off with our updates, Heather, do you want to give us some updates from IFRC?
Sure. So, Dirk, did you introduce yourself?
No, I didn't. Why would I?
Of course. Please go ahead.
Sorry, folks. I'm Dirk Slater. I am the Fab Writer in Fab Writers. We work to help build capacities around data and technology use. And that's me.
Perfect. And so my name's Heather Leeson. I'm with the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies. We're on a data journey to get better at using data and to protecting data. And that means having a data culture. That's really important for us. We co-created the data playbook with our colleague Dirk, and we did that with hundreds of people across the world. And we did that and we shared it with you and with everybody because we think that the way we get better with data is by doing that and by sharing and co-creating. But we're very excited that all of you are joining. Some of you are from the Red Cross movement, Red Cross Red Crescent movement. Some of you are partners that we work with. Some of you are university students. Some of you are from governments, development people. All of us are on this journey to do that. And so, we partnered with the Center for Humanitarian Data, which is Caitlin's here, and I believe Lisa, and we partnered with them on some data pilots because we feel that data readiness and data literacy is a shared journey. And that's why we started this Data Literacy Consortium, just to give us a space where all of us could learn. And so just most of all, just welcome. And maybe Caitlin, just quickly from you guys.
Yeah, so my name is Caitlin Rogers, previously of School of Data. I'm recently working with the Center for Humanitarian Data, as Heather just said. So over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to work with many, many organizations and communities. And what I've noticed is that many of them, all of them, I would say, are grappling with the same issues around how to build data culture. So as an example, the Center for Humanitarian Data recently conducted a data literacy survey. So we did this in January and we received over 1,200 responses. One of the things that came out of this project that we found was most interesting. So we asked the question, how frequently do you work on tasks related to data in your job? It turned out that 98% of respondents work on tasks related to data and 70% work with data all the time. despite this point, that 98% of these 1,200 humanitarians, when I talk to people, I constantly hear the refrain, I am not a data person. And so when people tell me this, I know what they mean. They mean that they don't have like one very specific skill set that represents what it is to be a data person. And for me, this is causing a lot of problems because people don't feel like they should be part of this conversation around data. So one of the things that we want to do is build a more inclusive conversation around data. And I think that starts with building a data culture. So I'm super excited for this conversation and just thrilled that 40 people are turning up in the middle of the day to talk about it.
At some point, we also have some people from Asia joining. So just thank you so much for coming so late at night. And don't forget, we are asking you to just add a quick update. I know that we'd love to hear all your voices, but that would make this call 4 hours. And so just in lieu of that, we ask you to just add an update, add your name and some of the data priorities. And so that we can learn about each other and just kind of read and go ahead. Dirk, over to you.
Great, and we will give you guys an opportunity to use your voices. You're going to get an opportunity to talk to each other in small groups about data culture and your efforts and all that. That'll come later in the call. But I'm going to have to do a slight shift in our agenda. And so, Jesus, I am firstly just apologize. I'm going to need to put you on the spot and ask you to go first in terms of the presenting. I hope that's okay.
We're good?
Good.
Well,
Great.
Very quickly, before I hand over to Sonia, thank you so much, guys, for inviting us to share, to collaborate, and to learn. Because I think about data literacy, I think this is very much the purpose of this group, is that we do all of those things. And so today we'll give you a brief of some of the initiatives that Mercy Corp is taking. We're going to start with my colleague Sonia on the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning group. And then I will give everyone a brief update of where we are with our global responsible data program. So over to you, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Jesus. Hi, everyone. If you can't hear me, please go ahead and let me know. I see the group chat. I'll just start with briefly summarizing what we all know. We know that data literacy is important because, first of all, we want to maximize our impact on our beneficiaries. If we have data, we can better enable our program teams to make good decisions and have some room for innovation. In addition to that, we really want to make sure that we're adapting. If something's not working, we want to use that data to learn and adapt as needed. And we want to inform future program design. So those are some key things that I know all of us think are important, but this is Mercy Corp's perspective as well, and that's why we decided to have these initiatives this year. So I will briefly talk about the next slide, which is just some of the challenges and some of the solutions we came up as a result of these challenges. I'm sure this is not new to any organization. I've encountered it everywhere where I've worked. But there's always the challenge of budgeting adequately, not just for collecting the data, analyzing the data, reviewing the data, making sure that we take the space to discuss the information with our program and our stakeholders. The capacity of our program teams, the capacity sometimes of the countries where we work in terms of data gathering activities, and staffing issues which are linked to budget. To address all these challenges, we've developed some policy and guidance. We've emphasized the importance of being a data-driven culture with senior management, and we've developed some specific monitoring, evaluation, and learning resources, and also some technology initiatives to address this.
Sonia, we're in the next slide, management engagement with data.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. I said
okay, sorry.
The slide about management engagement with data.
Yes, I will just briefly emphasize that our approach this year has really been to engage with senior managers, both at the country level and at the program level, and to get them to be consumers of data. We've had regional program evidence workshops where we've worked through existing data, either from a program or at the country level, where we talked about the importance of using that data, and where we also created a wish list for what senior managers would love to have in terms of data to better support their work. We've engaged with the development of country level strategies and talked about how to structure those to ensure that they have a measurement framework. And we've also developed an internal indicator tracking system that's called TOLA to help our program teams not only collect data, but also create some quick reports to tell them whether their programs are on target. In addition to that, we've done some work on the operational side. And what do I mean by operational? We really wanted to make sure that we have the tools and we highlight the teams that are engaging with data that are driving this culture. We created a Mel dashboard that shows which teams are using data for decision making, how they're budgeting, how they're planning for evaluations. We've created budget templates and processes to engage with teams on, so to ensure, particularly for very large programs, that they're budgeting adequately. And we've also developed a very robust guidance that's embedded into a Wikimedia platform that works through the program cycle. So if you're interested in learning anything about monitoring, evaluation, learning, data, adapting, we've provided step-by-step instructions along with very targeted guidance tools. And to support all of this, we're working with our talent team to ensure that we are asking the right questions when we bring on new staff, that we have the right position descriptions, and that we also look at the right level of experience to really encourage a data-driven culture, both at the country and at the program level. And that's a quick overview. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have, but I'll let Jesus continue with the work that he's been leading.
Yeah, no, so just very quickly before we move on to questions, and Dirk, by all means, stop me so we have enough time, because, I mean, we love the Q&As. I think going back to Heather's point of we are in a data journey, I think in Mercy Corp, like in everywhere else, you know, we've been working with data for God knows how long. I think consequence of that is that in an organization that is about 5,000 or 5,000 plus people in so many places, so many countries, with so many different programs, and with a very strong back office operation, we've realized that we have so many fragmented initiatives that have to do with you know, policies, that have to do with data-related policies, that have to do with data privacy, data sharing, data protection, security, you name it. All of which obviously are related to the topic of discussion today, which is, you know, how important it is to develop a data culture that helps you improve your data literacy for whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's back office or program implementation. Thanks to a very generous grant from our partner Cisco, technology company Cisco, the Technology for Impact team was created. And one of the core initiatives of that team was basically to work on developing a responsible data program that would be a holistic program that will bring all of those fragmented initiatives into one single roadmap, into one single program. I think the most important thing for the topic of today's discussion that we have done is we've created a global data governance and a global responsible data policy. That is our attempt to bring everyone into the same page when we talk about data literacy, and through that governance start basically defining what a data culture we want to have at Mercy Corp. The slide basically just represents some of the initiatives that we are currently running under the program, but we are very much at the beginning of it.
Great, thank you so much, Jesus. Just to pause, if anybody has a question, if you can use the chat room to type that in, that would be great. Yeah, and just Jesus, you know, thank you so much for sharing that experience and everything that you're doing. Yeah, just wondering if you might just elaborate just a little bit in terms of the responsible data work and trying to get those different sectors to be talking to each other about that stuff as they're trying to understand and ingest it.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, as I said, we're very much at the beginning of that exercise. Just earlier today, as a matter of fact, we had our monthly governance meeting where we were basically getting feedback from various stakeholders in the organization about the global data policy that is led by my colleague Heather Love, who, by the way, might be in this call.
I think she is.
By all means, jump in. Look, it's not an easy task. That's what I say. I mean, it's taken lots and lots of interviews with individuals at country level, at headquarters level, lots of discussions with various functional areas within Mercy Corp. The research team, for instance, is very much involved in this, as well as our programs, as well as our country directors, and as I said, technical experts that ultimately are relying on data to do their work. Of course, we've also been looking at industry best practices. We are all part of the Responsible Data Group. We've looked at NetHope, World Vision, Oxfam, work that the Engine Room has been doing. We've looked at the Signal Code from the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheels here. We're basically trying to combine what we're doing with what's happening outside and trying to localize it to our needs. But we absolutely realize that even with a global data policy and with a global data culture, every context is different, every program is different. So we are encouraging teams to ultimately take whatever we develop globally and basically contextualize it to their ecosystem and to their environment.
Great. Jesus. We do have some questions coming in, and I want to make sure that they get answered. I am going to really do a bad job of names, but is it Gines Casanova?
Yes, it's Gines.
There, I got it.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Oh, very good. And as you noticed, I took you off mute, so you could ask.
Yeah, I saw it. So my question is about this TOLA system you're following, about these indicators for following up the performance of your teams internally. We are actually developing that now, and we are guessing that we can track time, whether things are being done, getting done on time or not, or expenditure, whether we are spending the money we should be spending on time or not. And it's basically relating these two indicators that we are thinking how to follow up a system that is basically not digitalized and it's basically not data driven. It's we are trying to get to give this step and go further of the emails, the phone calls, and the uninformal reporting and all these templates that are non-readable by machines, that are all of them in Word or in an Excel spreadsheet that is written in narratives, basically. So this transition to data needs, of course, indicators, as you said, and I would love to hear some of examples of the indicators you're using for that.
Sure. So, hi, this is Sonia. So TOLA is a program-level software that has been developed to meet the needs of all of our programs. So indicators include tracking outputs, simple outputs like number of people trained, number of grants distributed to civil society organizations, and so on. And in addition to that, you can also track outcomes, whether there's been perception changes at the community or governance level, whether there's been capacity level changes, whether reading outcomes have improved. It enables you to organize your indicators by the program logic and also link all the supporting evidence to those indicators. So those could be, you know, your survey tools that you're using to capture the indicator data. It could be your monitoring tools. We are not looking yet at performance indicators in the sense of, you know, is this grant on budget? So it's not linked to a financial system. It's more about the indicators that are used to measure activities versus budget. Does that answer your question?
I think so, but actually my doubts are still getting there about, because it's a new question actually. This is time effective. I think that producing all the data and producing actually the templates where you are going to fill in the data, it's so time consuming. Is it being so for you, or is this system allowing you to do it in an agile way?
That is the best question I've had about this system. And you just highlighted a challenge that I skimmed through, which is budget, timing, and capacity. As we're rolling out the system, what we're noticing is that before we roll it out, we need to spend significant amount of time providing that more traditional monitoring and evaluation support to our program team. The templates, the indicator definition, and so on, because otherwise the tool itself is not useful. So we're spending both time with the traditional M&E support as well as training on TOLA.
Thank you very much.
Great. So we are fortunate in that our other guest speaker has arrived. Before we run on, I just want to acknowledge both the question and the response that has happened in the chat room. So Steve asked, could you expound more on the data audit assessment? Was the focus mainly on your primary data, or did you do a quality assessment or secondary data that could complement your activities? And Heather Love has responded with, the assessment was to identify all the areas and activities we needed to work on to become more responsible in our data handling and security. That resulted in a large matrix of tasks, which were then prioritized for this year, one of which was the foundation for creating a global responsible data policy. The rest of the tasks in the matrix will be addressed over the next couple of years. And the global policy is in development, hoping to release this publicly next year. So thank you for that exchange. And also forgive me for, in the interest of time and the fact that we have our other guest speakers that has just arrived, I'm going to move us on. And Catherine, I am so glad you're here. And just in case you haven't noticed, you are probably on mute. I am unmuting you.
Welcome, Catherine.
There she is. Catherine.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I messed up the time zone. I'm in Argentina right now, and I did the time zones wrong.
And also, we are in that odd week where part of the world has changed their clocks and the other part hasn't. And it is,
Exactly.
We were noting early like how crazy this is. We are so grateful you have come. I am hoping that you will be able to share your screen and do your PowerPoint, and you'll be ready to go.
Yes, here, I'm trying to do it right now. Tell me.
It's looking good.
Hooray.
So let me just make sure. Now tell me if you all see this now.
We see it. It is great. Yoo-hoo.
Super. Yay. So thank you so much for Dirk and Heather for convening all of us and for inviting me to speak. I'm going to try to just be really brief because I would love to talk with folks about how they conceive of a data culture. So this should be less than 10 minutes. And if I'm going on, Dirk, you can please stop me. So I just want to talk a little bit about some collaborative work that I've been doing with Rahul Bhargav, who's at the Center for Civic Media at MIT, where we've been developing kind of a emerging definition as well as literacy and education activities that can support building a data culture. And specifically, we're working with nonprofit organizations, journalist organizations, civic groups, civil sector groups, and thinking about how do we kickstart more of a data culture in these organizations, which tend to have less, they're not the Facebooks and the Googles of data where they have infinite resources and can just staff up and hire 1 million data scientists. So we have an emerging, like a sort of working definition of a data culture. But first, I guess I should say with the way that we articulate the value of data to nonprofit organizations, civil sector organizations is really in 3 areas. So one is, and a lot of these people I'm sure are familiar with. And so like improving operations tends to be the main thing that people think of when they think of the benefits of data. So thinking about things like efficiency and measurement, trying to make sure that you meet whatever your strategic goals are, and using data in order to assess that, as well as using data in key ways to try to make your operations more efficient. But then data can also be extremely useful in terms of spreading your message and communicating your value to the outside world and to whoever your constituents and stakeholders in the world might be. And those might be sort of like end users or recipients of the services that your group provides, or they might be the folks that are funding you, the board, and so on and so forth. And then finally, this third area, which Rahul and I really emphasize in our work, but we think gets a little less attention in terms of asserting what the value of data is for civil sector organizations, is really about bringing people together. So we don't tend to think of this data as this convening force, but Rahul and I like to think about it as a kind of campfire around which people can gather and try to figure out like what is going on, a way to think about how do we gather people from diverse parts of our organization and assess like what is really happening, what is this telling us, where do we go from here. So this is like a data as a campfire is the analogy that we like to use. And then here's our process. There's many of these process diagrams in terms of like how does one do a data-driven project, starting with asking your questions, gathering your data, finding a story, and telling your story. And I'm going to come back to this process diagram in just a second. But first I want to talk really more specifically about like what is the data culture? And so when we say data culture, the culture that we're looking to create is something that's across an organization. And there's 2 bullet points here about leadership, and then there's 2 bullet points here about staff. So buy-in from leadership, as a lot of us know, I think culture flows from the top in organizations. And so buy-in and prioritization from leadership is really important. So leadership needs to prioritize data collection, management, and analysis and knowledge production, as well as prioritizing creative data literacy for everyone in the organization, not just for IT people and not just for like evaluation and measurement staff. So really throughout, like a data culture is a throughout the organization kind of thing. And then in a data culture, staff are both encouraged and supported. So there's a kind of a learning that needs to be able to take place to access, combine, and derive insight from the organization's data, as well as potentially other sources of data. And then finally, staff recognize data when they see it. Staff can offer creative ways to use the organization's data to solve problems, make decisions, and tell stories. So this doesn't mean that like everybody on staff is a data scientist. It doesn't mean that everybody has specific technical skills. In fact, Rahul and I think that like we can encourage data learning and data capacity and data culture. Like everybody can think creatively about what's possible with data without needing to actually like be able to do inferential statistics or something like that, right? There's a place for inferential statistics. There's a place for natural language processing. Everyone doesn't have to be able to do that work in order to have a data culture, in order to know what's possible with data, in order to see the data that they have already. And this is a thing that happens often, where often organizations think, oh, we need to just get more data. We need to hire more people. And often that actually isn't the case. So real fast, some of the barriers that we've seen and that we've heard of as we've been doing this project, some of the barriers to building a data culture, which are fairly common, are really just confusion and lack of good educations and trainings and tools, lack of a good approach on behalf of the organization. So a lot of intros to data are either very confusing or they're super granular, like they're like, here's how to use census data or something like that. And then it's like, people are like, why am I even using census data? Like, I don't get how this relates to my job at all. Or they're just purely too technical. They're at a level that's too technical for whatever the job function of the folks who are attending is. The second is, and we hear this a lot, where organizations often think we need more data. We want to do more surveys, we need to collect more things, but often organizations don't necessarily see and make really good use out of the data that they already have. And a lot of times, sort of backing up for a moment and really thinking about what data do we already collect and how do we mobilize that and manage that internally can relieve some of that need for just like incessant data collection and then having it like sit somewhere, or probably just live on somebody's local hard drive and then go away at some point. Another barrier to data culture is silos. So this is particularly tricky in larger organizations where, you know, certain groups own things and then don't want to give up control, and other groups want to come in or just don't see those things as their things. And so this is a particularly tricky one. Is thinking about how do we break down some of those barriers and help people feel like it's okay to work across organizational lines. What we often see with data is that there's a kind of IT-centric thinking that happens. And so a lot of times, you know, the leadership will give data. They'll be like, okay, data is your problem, IT department. And so the IT department ends up becoming sort of the arbiter of what is collected, how it's stored, and how it's used, and sort of separated from the actual business function or the potential business function that the data could be used for. And then finally, relevance. A lot of times when we're collecting data, like a lot of the products that are sold right now, the high-level dashboards promising panoptic insight into everything, are very much about presenting that for a high-level view, like you know, you're the person surveying your dominion or something like that. But what is the actual relevance of those kind of dashboards for staff? And so sort of connecting things across the pipeline from the collection of the data into the insight that is driven from the data, connecting those and helping people see the relevance of those things rather than just building more dashboards for people to get high-level insight. And then finally, a big barrier is that data is seen as really boring, and it's hard. Often the trainings and education around data is boring. It's very technical. It's super dry. And so thinking about how do we make data more affective? How do we make it more people-centered? How do we make it about opening up conversations rather than just imagining that the numbers have all the answers in some way? And so I'll show you, this is the data culture project, which is the last part. I just want to describe what Rahul and I have done in this space as a way of trying to counteract some of those barriers in a way that's very lightweight and very cheap. This is free. What we've done is we've built some of the tools that we've made, a tool called Data Basic that's online. There's a couple of different tools. We've wrapped the activities around those, and they're designed, oh wait, I'll come back to this slide in just a second. The Data Culture Project is a set of around 10 activities at this point, and they're designed to be run in 1-hour sessions where you as the organization run this internally. And they're designed to be activities around data that help people ask questions, that help people come together, and then also help people start to learn different kinds of analytical concepts. So like, what is quantitative text analysis? You do a fun activity around quantitative text analysis, and then you have a debrief brainstorm to see, well, like, how could we do this? What kind of data do we collect in our organization where we might apply this analytic technique and to get some insight out of it? We call it self-service because you can pick and choose the activities that you want to run. And we did a pilot of the Data Culture Project now about a year and a half ago, where we had a cohort of about 30 organizations, including the Red Cross, Red Crescent, which is awesome. Organizations of all different sizes, I should say. Like we had you can see the Junior Achievement League of Western Massachusetts, up to Red Cross, Red Crescent, the World Food Program, very large global nonprofits. And what they did in the pilot is we did a 3-month cohort. Organizations ran one of our activities each month, and then we had a monthly debrief about how it went, the challenges that they faced, and how we could like improve the activity and tune it. So these activities have been tested through a range of different organizations, and we're actually hoping to run another cohort in the future. So I might stop there. Where I should say, like, the data culture project is not like this is how you solve the data culture problem. It's really just meant as an emerging set of activities that folks can draw on to start to have these conversations about data culture in their organizations, and to model what a more fun, less siloed approach might look like, knowing that that approach will need to be contextual for every different organization. It's going to look different how to build the data culture in that organization. And so, yeah, and this is an example of one activity, the Sketch a Story activity, and each of the activities is facilitated with videos from myself and Rahul as like your talking head facilitators, so that that's to try to like offload some of the labor of being the facilitator in your organization. And yeah, and we have a mailing list. So maybe I'll stop there, and we can have a conversation.
And with that, Heather, we do have a little bit we want to share with you. Heather, you want to talk about the building a data culture module from the Playbook?
Sure. So just first of all, when we think about a data culture, it's about all the people who are part of that. And so part of the reason we do the breakout groups is so that you guys get a chance to meet each other. When I came to IFRC, the International Federation of Red Cross Red Crescent Societies, I sought out, I kind of have a 4 or 5 step thing that we did in terms of trying to build a data culture, and I wanted to share that with you. I found my allies, people, some of those people are on the call right now, about how are they working on data? How can we kind of co-create together? We started an ABC process of being consistent. What I mean by ABC is always be charging. We had regular lunch and learns. We asked people to lead a session. We took stuff from MIT Media Lab and Emerson's data culture project. We took examples and tried to figure out what do people want to learn. We got their feedback. We scaled with others. So find your allies, have consistent events. We tried to embed all of our activities into existing activities and needs. So if there was a response, an emergency response, we tried to have a session around that topic. With data protection, we worked really hard in concert with our legal team and our IT team and a bunch of other groups to make sure that we could kind of co-create around how do we talk about data protection. So build within the systems and the processes and the communities. And then 4, join up and solve together, which is how we started to partner with HDX. And overall for us, it's not always accessible. We have to kind of try and make it, we tried to make content that was accessible as possible, even though data could be not very glamorous, right? Or people are very intimidated by it. So some of the stuff that Catherine said, as well as our friends from Mercy Corps, we tried to build a positive community spirit and just try to make it festive as much as possible. So, having a little bit of fun, which is why the Data Playbook was created. We listened to our diverse networks to try and understand what they needed and take cues from them. And then again, we kind of co-created the Data Playbook with our wide network. And we did that because building confidence and trust in what you have and the skills you have in your organization is so important. There are super talented people there. And so if you can co-create your culture with them, you'll have more buy-in, and then you can be able to move forward. It also gives you metadata. And then we published and shared that playbook. And so there's some of the tips and guidelines around building data culture that we kind of modeled. Those are all in the Data Playbook free online for you guys. So I know we only have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to cut myself short. But again, data culture takes hundreds of people across the world for Red Cross Red Crescent. We have data literacy focal points. Some of them are on the call right now from around the world. We have sector leads. We found any ambassador we possibly can because we need as many people testing and piloting and working on it to make it better. Over to you, Dirk.
Thank you so much, Heather. And just to say, could you put the link to the Data Playbook? I was just trying to grab it as you were talking, but in both the chat room and on the Google Doc.
Sure, so teamwork, done.
Have access to it. And also Catherine and Jesus, if you wouldn't mind sharing your links to your slide decks in the Google Doc as well, so we have them, I would certainly appreciate it. And so with that, I just really want to thank everyone for coming today. This has been, again, just an incredible learning experience for us. I think we are going to have a really deep debrief after this hour of watching all this interaction and information flow and figure out how to make this so much better for the next time. But really just so appreciative that so many people want to have this conversation and participate in it. We are very grateful for your attendance today. I just really want to give a big thanks to Catherine D'Ignazio. Thank you so much for sharing and all that. We really appreciate all the hard work you and Rahul are doing over there. Jesus, Sandra, Heather from Mercy Corps, thank you so much for all that you shared today and your learnings from Mercy Corps. And we are really looking forward to learning more about your journey as you go along. Gotta say thank you to the partners, Caitlin, Lisa, Javier, and the rest of the crew at Center for Humanitarian Data. Thank you for all your hard work. Heather, Margarita from the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies, thank you so much. Everyone else for participating today, just want to remind you, this Google Doc will remain online and accessible. If you want to continue to put in your updates or share tidbits that you learned in your small groups, we would certainly appreciate it. A little bit later today, I will be sharing the recording after I've gotten a chance to edit the bits that will make it long and dull for folks watching. But we'll also be in touch about the next consortium meeting and activities. And anything else, Heather, before we close?
Yes, just very quickly, we need your input. So we're designing all the different sessions and asking people to speak based on what you guys are saying. So in the Google Doc, if you want to say what your priority is, that's going to be super helpful for us to be able to kind of co-create this with our friends over at HDX. Catherine, Caitlin, and Lisa, and Javier, and then as well our teams here. So thanks again for joining, and Dirk, thanks again for being a host and for taking on our crazy tool shifts so that we can make sure that we have more collaboration.
Great, and you are more than welcome. So thank you all. We will be seeing soon. If there is, I'll be sticking around a little bit if you have any direct questions or anything. But other than that, it is top of the hour. Thank you so much for a great meeting.
Thanks, everybody.